Good afternoon. What we're going to be talking about and discussing, because these are always two ways, hopefully, is what I consider to be a really important subject, and that concerns beliefs and emotions. And this has been studied by lots of people, discussed by lots of people. In fact, I saw a reference to Aristotle just recently. So this is something which is really very fundamental to us as human beings. And then what I'll try to do today, what I will do today, is connect this with precognition and the work that we're doing at APP. So many people have thought about these things, and that's what I'll be talking about. Now, Chris was going to just give a summary, and there isn't much yet since it's really very early in our planning, about APP2015. He told me that a business thing came up and he doesn't know if he's going to be here in time, but I'll give you a summary on that and then we'll open it up to anything else. Okay, so with that, this concept of beliefs, emotions, they really are strongly entangled. And I love to find these quotes off the internet. And this is one that resonated with me. Emotion is a preview of what's being made out of the beliefs you are presently taking as true. Let me tell you what I think that means and how it's really quite important and shows this entanglement. This takes the point of view that your belief system is really very fundamental to the way you view the world. So imagine if your belief systems are rigid, okay, and not changing. Okay, so you've reached the point now where your belief systems are however they are. Then as you go through your life with this set of belief systems, the different emotions that you are experiencing are really based on this world you've put together from your beliefs. So I really think that there's a lot of truth to that. Stuff that you emotionally respond to, say as being good or bad, or things that you fear, are based on what you believe is good or bad, or what might harm you, for example. So this is really a direct connection between emotion and beliefs, which I think we can appreciate. Now here's a quote about emotions, and I'll show you in a moment. People disagree with this, obviously, but this is a very interesting quote from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She was the one who was one of the very early researchers, perhaps the first who made it public about near-death experiences. But anyway, here's her quote. "There are only two emotions, love and fear. All positive emotions come from love. All negative emotions from fear. From love flows happiness, contentment, peace, and joy. From fear comes anger, hate, anxiety, and guilt. It's true that there are only two primary emotions, love and fear. But it's more accurate to say that there is only love or fear. For we cannot feel these two emotions together at exactly the same time. They're opposites. If we're in fear, we are not in a place of love. When we're in a place of love, we cannot be in a place of fear." Isn't that great? And very much implied in there is that this emotion is this here and now thing which you know for sure. There's certain things which you know, there's certain things which you believe, which make up your world, a combination of them, but the thing you know for sure are your what's going on right now. And in her perspective, it's either be love-related or fear-related, emotionally anyway, which is sort of interesting. Okay, now here's somebody else's take on all the emotions. These are the primary emotions, and love is at the top and fear is at the bottom. So I suppose Kubler-Ross would sort of take these three and to the left put love as the super primary, and over here, anger, sadness, and fear, she would put fear as the primary and say all of these come out of that in her perspective. This guy started with 6 and broke them up. But, you know, here we are. People have studied this sort of thing, plenty of emotions around, and the relationship to belief systems in general is very, very clear. I just want to give one example before I relate it to ARV, and that is, imagine a vegetarian, vegan type person, in fact, let's relate it to ARV, who is an ARVer and is going into the future looking for a target that they've been tasked to do. And imagine that there is a real meat lover who just loves his meat, right? He believes meat's good for you, and he just loves the taste of meat, and he believes it's terrific, as opposed to the vegan who wouldn't really want to touch it, feels it's unhealthy, or maybe he doesn't like it just because, you know, it involves the killing of animals, whatever. You know, people have their different belief systems about that sort of thing. They're different feelings which are related to their belief system. Okay, how do you think these people would emotionally react to the following target? Quite differently. And this, in fact, does relate to ARV, because there have been studies done by this Bem, Howard Bem, Cornell University, where he's done studies of people doing precognition, and they tend to go towards, they get higher hit rates on pictures that they like versus pictures which, targets which are, let's say, more repulsive to them. And so different people are going to react differently to different kinds of targets. So there's kind of an example where belief systems and emotions indeed are related to precognition. Now, I want to get to what I think is really at the heart of this whole subject, which is that we have met the enemy and he is us. Now, as I'm going to explain, I really think there's a lot of truth in this concept, except the enemy part. When Walt Kelly did this, it was related to Earth Day. And one of the things he was concerned about was pollution, all the junk in our physical world. He's done this kind of thing before with wars, and that's what he was getting at with the physical world. What I would like to do is get us to really recognize that the work we're doing and the work that needs to be done in terms of precognition is the inner stuff. In other words, this stuff that affects things like precognition is at the level of belief systems, at the level of emotion. The intellect is certainly around and involved, but that too is internal. So working this internal stuff, I see really as the key challenge. Your belief systems, how you can use your emotions to better open up yourself to the precognitive information that I believe is always out there. It's just a matter of getting it through your internal system. And precognitive information, I think most of us have been around long enough where we just know it's out there and it's available. It's a matter of tapping into it. Well, how do you best do that? You do that by working the internal stuff. And, you know, I could have written paragraphs and paragraphs and probably a whole book on why you should take this on and why, in fact, you should enjoy it. And you know what? I finally came down to, this is your stuff. This internal stuff that's inside there, it's you, right? You're the one doing the precognition, and especially the way we task, describe, and sketch your target. You know, you personalize it, make it my target. You're going and connecting up with something that's going to happen in your future. And how that happens is, in fact, very personal, and your belief system is a key part of that. Now, one other thing which is in here, which seems so right on for most of us, is this word hard. It just, people over and over say to me, and hey, look, I'm no different than you. My precognition is something which I constantly am working on, trying to improve. And it appears hard. And yet I'm beginning to think more and more, one of the first things we need to examine is this belief and the emotion associated with that it's hard to organize this inner stuff, to release these negative emotions. And yet, of course, that's difficult to do, and that's what we're talking about here. And I'm not going to give you any magic bullet, except perhaps to say, and you're not going to like this, it's up to you. These belief systems are yours. Looking at them, becoming aware of them, becoming aware of the emotions related to them, I believe is the first and, in fact, perhaps the most critical step. You have to want to do that. A lot of people simply do not want to get into that. And I suggest that it is just these belief systems that are at the fundamental of allowing an opening for the precognitive information to come through. So, now, question. And I'm going to go through several of these because I think these are key questions related to precognition, associative remote viewing, other types of precognition. This concept of focusing on the long term, taking the perspective of the long term, which means all you ever do and take actions and are aware of is this very moment, which is about the shortest term that you can imagine, what's happening right now. And whenever we take actions in the short term. And yet we all recognize we're on a journey, which are the collection of all of these conscious moments, conscious actions in the physical world, conscious things we experience and believe in our inner world. This is all going on moment by moment by moment. And yet we know it's all connected. That's what precognition tells us. So by having this kind of focus, and focus usually means like focusing on the small, but it clearly does not have to mean that. You can mentally have an image which includes, say, from now to a year from now, okay? And where am I going to be a year from now? And while you don't even want to go into all the details on how it's going to happen, you can have the sense of being in a much better place. And that can be your focus, doing the moment-to-moment things leading to this long-term perspective and long-term desire. Now, most of you have seen me quote Abraham. I just resonate with a lot of the stuff. In fact, everything I show you is stuff I resonate with, or I wouldn't show it to you, and which I believe has a lot of truth in it. But this was a very interesting one which came up just as I'm preparing this. The timing of these things is always interesting. Okay, so this is from through Abraham. But, so there's a question here. What if what I want and what you want are in conflict? If I want rain and you've just cut your alfalfa, how does that work? And we see that all the time, right? We see people making predictions one way, and then someone else is making the prediction the opposite way. We know one's going to get a hit and one's going to get a miss, so there's like an apparent conflict there. But here's what Abraham says. If you will focus upon the essence of what you want, so this example is saying a magnificent new crop, and the other person will focus upon the essence of what they want. In this case, it's a successful alfalfa harvest or whatever. And if either one of you doesn't get too involved in the details, so clearly not talking short term, don't get involved too much in the details on how you think you want your desire to play out, then both of you can be satisfied. The universe has the facility to orchestrate circumstances and events to accommodate everyone. I think that's really cool. And the part about this, which I just want to focus your attention on, is don't get involved in how it's going to happen. Keep your focus on that you're going to get there, and you will make decisions rather naturally on how to get there. Stuff will come up, and you will always make the decision which will stay in tune with the long-term focus. Now, in some cases, guess what? You're going to get misses. In some cases, you're going to get hits. However, with your focus on the long term, the idea here is that you're going to get there. And you need to be with that journey moment by moment, but keeping your eye on the big picture, the longer term. Now, what do you guys think about that? Do you think this perspective makes sense? Is it a perspective that you can work further on? I know, very little. I will keep going, but I hope you're getting my point here. And these are things that you can do once you start looking at whether you think it's important. However, you first have to come to the conclusion that it's important. That's part of your belief system. And then you do the work of getting there. This is another one. Do you believe being optimistic really is better for you for the long term? Will you, in fact, be happier if you choose optimism over pessimism. If you think positive, then positive things will happen. I know a lot of people have the natural inclination to see the glass as being half empty. Others have them as seeing the glass half full. We've all talked about that. The belief system here that I think matters is whether you believe you can modify your belief system. And is that hard work? I think most of us at one time or another, something has happened and zap, your belief system is changed based on something happening, based on having a new perspective. I grant you it doesn't happen very often. But nevertheless, if you desire to change your belief system, coming from the position where that's like the most fundamental thing that you can work on, at least one of the most fundamental things you can work on, perhaps this is one that you'd like to work on because you think it would be better for you. And this whole idea of working internal, it's your stuff and you can work it. Here's another one. What do you think about this one? Most people with lots of money did something wrong to get it. One way or another inside your system, you have a feeling about that. A lot of us, when they see rich people, and there's so much in the news about, those rich Wall Streeters, or this group is, with all their money, is going for the wrong candidate. The candidate, I think, is lousy, and God, they got their money badly. And, this is a belief system which you would say, well, who cares about that? It isn't related to ARV. But it is if one of the things we want to do is get to the point where ARV can be applied to make lots of money. That's what we're doing in Firefly. Now, if you believe money is potential energy and basically neutral, and can be used for things which are good and used for things which are bad. If that's your primary belief system, then you go make some money and use it for good stuff. But if you come from a position, and sometimes we're not aware of these subtle belief systems, but if you watch yourself and how you react to things, you can pick that up. If you have this belief system that people with lots of money did something wrong to get it, and here you are trying to get a lot of money, you must think you're doing something wrong. There's an implication of that internally, and that causes conflict. Some of us really believe ARV can educate society about applied precognition. I happen to think this is very important. This is one of my primary motivating things. And guess what? When I get a miss still, and I just have trouble, it makes me doubt whether or not in the moment I'm going to get there. And then what I do is I remind myself I'm in this for the long term. I know we can get there. I, in fact, like to feel that we are there. And taking the long-term perspective. I even go through some stupid intellectual stuff and look at the data and all that again. And so it's just a matter of time. That might be how I would react, having this as a belief system and yet seeing negative evidence, if you will. And all of us, in app, all of us are doing ARV. In particular, when we have a miss, that is a real opportunity to look at your belief systems, because stuff comes up at feedback time. I believe the most important time when we do our work to get better at this is feedback time, because we can watch ourselves um, in a way where we can get access to our beliefs. Okay, now here are some excerpts that were provided actually by Igor, but they come from a book which I have, and I just forgot about this, so I think it's a very good connection. And the question is, what do you believe about these two quotes which come from Inner Vegas? Joe gives a lot of workshops on this in Vegas. He comes from the Monroe Institute, which is the same place, and he gives talks there as well, which is the same place Joe McMonagle is sort of centered at. Anyway, here it is. It is essential to feel deserving at a deep level. Again, we're talking about the inner world. It is essential to feel deserving at a deep level for abundance in the form of love, money, meaningfulness, or grace. Okay, so all of these kind of good things, to feel that in abundance, for that to be fully received, you need to feel deserving. Very interesting. Life also demands surrender, letting go of fears and attachments. To live well, we must die each day to what is no longer useful, living, and vital in our lives, rebirthing each morning to the infinity of possibilities. I thought that's really beautiful. And the word die, such a strong word, but I think one of the things which he's referring to here is letting some of the old beliefs which we so strongly hold for so many good reasons. Hey, all of our beliefs came to us for very good reasons. And sometimes you have to let them die. And who makes that decision? That's what's so critical here. It's your internal stuff, and I believe ever so strongly, and I hope you will believe ever so strongly, that there's nobody else out there that should make those choices but you. They're your belief systems. You came by them honestly, if you will, and you should honestly and openly say, you know what, it's time for me to give this one up, or modify it, or whatever feels right to you. Now, if the idea of a particularly big win really excites your passion, and it is in line with your heart and spirit's best desire for your greatest benefit and those around you, then go for it wholeheartedly. If it really feels right, and I love this, really getting into the emotion here, with the passion and the heart, the spirit, then go for it wholeheartedly. If it is right for you and your passion is so great that it overwhelms any fears or limiting thoughts that you might have, then that big win has a great chance of manifesting. It's really another wonderful quote. So many people will tell you they've got the secret and it will always happen. A great chance of manifesting. We live in a world which has probabilities in it. And what we do is constantly increase the probabilities of getting this long-term stuff that we have as our objective in happening. And Abraham says it will always happen eventually, but you don't really quite define what long-term is, and all of that is in here. And Joe right here just, I think, captures it so well, that what we do, really having this emotional passion with the recognition that it's coming from inside us, right? Spirit is one of the better words for talking about the inner reality, and so is the heart. And this is what if you believe, and if this resonates with you, then you do. That this is the way you go. When he gives his classes, he gets people into this space where they really, really feel it. And it apparently works quite well. Okay. This also came to me very recently. I sent it on the list, so I don't know, it was 3-4 days ago. This is from the people who worked at Princeton University. They had a parapsychology group that focused on things like remote viewing and precognition. Jan and Dunn, and I think they're the authors of this just because they've been doing a lot of work together after they left Princeton. And so this comes from their new book, and I think this captures the essence of their book. Now, they're both scientists, and so they did things like reproduce the work at Stanford Research Institute. They showed scientifically precognition is real, remote viewing works, all of that stuff. And so they're now trying to understand it and come up with a physics-based model. So most of us are familiar with the concept of entropy. And when they say most of us, I think at least people who have some background in the sciences. I don't know how many of you have even heard of entropy, but entropy is a very fundamental, totally accepted physical world concept, which basically says things are going to move unidirectional and always proceed forward in time, linear time, towards disorder, more uncertainty. But it misses one of the most important things. It doesn't count for life itself, because we're just the opposite. We're constantly organizing things. We are a rather organized entity, and entropy would say things like us would really not develop, because we've come from disorder and we are quite ordered. So here is one of their key points, which this book is all about. Less well known is the complementary principle, syntropy. That's the subject of this book. Syntropy produces a continuous increase in complexity through the action of attractors that emanate, you ready, from the future. Now, well, let's read the rest of this and we'll talk about it a little bit. Increase in complexity through the action of attractors that emanate from the future and provide systems with their purpose and design, rather than generating disorder via increasing differentiation. Syntropy draws individuals and systems together by their common characteristics and goals. in a way, syntropy can be regarded as the life force that emanates from the unifying action of love. And that's the title of their book, The Spirit of Love. Now, I haven't read the book, but I don't think that, or believe, or feel that they've proven this in the classical scientific way. And yet, this approach, the way they've put this together, I believe fits the facts of our universe very well. It happens to be something that Abraham also says, where they talk here about drawing individuals and systems together by their common characteristics and goals. That's the law of attraction. They even use the word attractors in here. The connection with the future is marvelous because that fits with this long-term goal idea, that the future of your really strongly felt, passionately felt long-term goals, that future, in fact, is impacting, influencing, interacting with, entangling with your present conscious here and now moment. And so your present here and now moment is receiving stuff from the future. Well, guess what? That's what precognition shows is true. So this fits so beautifully. And I'm anxious to read what they say, and I suspect they're going to use precognition as one of their scientific elements in here. That makes sense. But I'd like to see if they really think they've proven it. But this general concept, and you can look up syntropy, and it, comes in a little differently, but doesn't come in exactly like they put it here. You won't hear the connection with unifying action of love. But here we are talking about belief systems and emotions. And that's rather interesting, because if you believe this is what's going on fundamentally in the universe, this says, love what we're doing. Love the connection that we can get with the future. Use this to your advantage. So I think this is quite important, this perspective. Now, the message, and I'm going to show you this in the next, I think, 4 slides. All of this comes down to trusting your inner self, right? I'm asking you to look inside yourself, but who's doing that looking? It's yourself. And trust the choices that you'll make in changing your belief system. Know whatever emotions you're feeling are okay. They're really there just to assist in you looking at your inner world, which is the source of your outer world. The inner world is your belief system, is what really defines what you see outside. So trust yourself. And I love this one. You won't get anywhere until you learn to trust yourself. And I think one of the other implications here is the journey. You're trusting yourself both in the here and now moment, which is connected to eternity, right? That's one of the things we talked about other times. But there's this journey that you have which takes you over the long term. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. This is part of the optimism revolution. But look who said this. When I found this one, I was quite surprised. Steve Jobs, the Apple guy. Have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Trust yourself. Make mistakes. Take chances. Be silly. Be imperfect. Trust yourself and follow your heart. Seems pretty good. If you don't make mistakes, that means you're not doing anything. That's probably the biggest mistake. Anyway, I wanted to share that one with you. And then this is the last one. The more you trust your intuition, the more empowered you become, the stronger you become, and the happier you become. It all boils down to fully trusting and believing in yourself. Just do what you feel is right. If your intentions are pure and good, then what more can you ask for? You are doing the best you can, and that's good enough. Trust your inner voice, stay true to yourself, and be happy. I think that's a wonderful device. And okay, as I say, a lot of people have thought about this before, and I've just brought to you what I think is the best of it and how it resonates with me and how it fits in with ARV. So, questions, comments?
Yes, Mario, continue.
Wait, I didn't quite hear you. Somebody said something, but I didn't quite make it out. Okay, well, no comments? Hey, Shane, I've got you on there. I see you've put comments in here, and I have not. Can you hear me? No. Okay. Okay, so we can't hear you, Shane. You can put a comment in the comment box, but how about somebody else? Scott, what do you think about all this? Belief systems important?
Yeah, I think they are important. For some reason, there's people that think they can do remote viewing in sports more successfully than remote viewing in currencies.
Right.
And they need to get over that belief. And this is one way to do it.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? It just does show how your belief systems have a direct effect on ARVing. That's a very good example. Somehow that sports would be different than finances. Now maybe it's because they see the money different or something, but they need to look at their own belief system if they want to change it. You know, we can't make them change it. We want them to change it, but the only person who can change it is the person themselves.
Yeah, I appreciate your presentation, Marty, as always. I mean, it's an important viewpoint that you expressed before, and I think it helps to hear it again. It's very important, the deep-seated belief systems that we have. For myself, like when I view in a we group or in Mark's group, I sort of have the same feeling. You know, it's going to be positive. It can always turn out positive. And frankly, I wake up every morning. You may not think so, Marty. I wake up every morning with a positive feeling about life and looking forward to it all, and particularly to our efforts here in APP. So I think it is important. As you know, I have maybe a slightly different view, but I think it's absolutely important that we we take this perspective, or parts of it anyway.
I want to clarify that for people in a general way, because John and I have known each other now for a long time, and one of our biggest disagreements comes down to, in fact, maybe our only disagreement, but probably not, but comes down to the issue of the importance of specific protocols versus kind of belief systems that, oh, you know, most protocols will work the same way. What matters is that you get into it in a positive fashion and stuff like that. And that's a belief system. And we have different belief systems about that. And that affects decisions we make. And so that's just an example. You know, in your life, you will have similar examples, and identifying them is what's important. I do think, okay, Shane, wait, let me just see what you just said to this. I do think there is something more critical about playing with a large amount of money, but I really just try to look at this as small amounts simply with zeros behind it, a multiple of what I was going to accomplish anyway. Okay, in fact, and we understand, and all of us have a point where it will become a lot of money. So when you believe it's a lot of money, then I don't think just by saying that there's fear involved, because you might lose that money. The basis of Firefly was that you only play the game with money that you're willing to lose completely to get rid of that fear. In other words, the original assumption, and we put this out as strongly as we knew how, and maybe everybody didn't listen to it, but and that was responding to this understanding that you want to come always from positive places, not bring fear in, and we tried to design it so there'd be as little fear in as possible. So your point is well taken, Shane. Okay, other comments?
This is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Can you hear me? With the money numbers with zeros, I know myself well enough to know that $5 is a whole lot smaller than $500, and even though it's money that it's not coming out of my checkbook, it's in the account there, and it's winnings that I'm playing with. Because I know myself well enough that I have some oddities, and so I've inched my wagers up a little bit at a time, and we won $500 last night. I mean, that's huge. We couldn't have done that.
That is huge. Good for you.
But we couldn't have done that. I mean, I'm still thinking, wow, this is wonderful. But I would never have had the courage to wager that much if we hadn't just inched it up a little bit. So there's my belief system. I know what my belief system is. I know that I have some errors in my thinking, but I have to stretch it a little bit at a time so that we can go on and eat and be happy with the survival and the reality of life.
Nancy, thank you. And in fact, and that's a very good strategy with belief systems, is to inch it a bit at a time. In other words, this idea that you can change them suddenly, yes, that happens sometimes, but more often it's just the way you're talking about. You change your belief system a little bit at a time.
And I also thought of something else as you were doing this presentation. This is such a good presentation. It's different. Belief system is very different than our emotions. Mm-hmm. And related to RV, I'm thinking about accuracy. We don't have to be in a happy place to win or lose an ARV wager. I'm thinking about Joe McMoneagle when he does, or in some of the things we've done. There was one that we did with John where we were actually remote viewing a situation with people. And those are serious situations sometimes that when we get the information can be startling and not always happy. You know, sometimes the person has passed away or whatever, but it doesn't diminish the happiness or the sadness or the shock or whatever. It's just data, and it doesn't diminish the belief system or the accuracy in the feed or the information that's gleaned from the process.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah.
I don't think we have to always be happy for every. It helps.
Right.
I mean, but it just helps feel happy. But that doesn't really matter.
That's right on. I mean, the emotions are telling you something about yourself. And that's part of the process and can be used, just as you indicated, to your advantage, to make you, to your advantage, and to know, and you could say, yeah, hey, the fact I had that emotion fits perfectly, and it's just right. And yet you can be sad. Okay, any other comments about this?
Yeah, I was in an RV class last weekend, and four new people were interested in joining chicken dinner, and I get this question all the time. They're worried they're going to mess things up, not for themselves but for the whole group because they're beginners. And then when people join Firefly, some of them are less concerned about losing their money than they are in somehow helping somebody else lose money. And that's a much bigger concern to them because it doesn't feel polite or it doesn't feel good to them.
Right.
It feels like we might damage each other.
Yeah,
That's never. We always want the very best.
Right. And what is that, Scott? That's coming from a place of concern. I mean, it seems like it's a positive place, but don't you think it might also be coming from a place of fear?
And limitation. Yeah.
Limitation. One of the Kubler-Ross was saying it's all from either love or fear. If you had to choose between one of those two, it's closer to coming from the fear. But of course, it's coming from some, less severe emotion in terms of how you're feeling it. But it's, that's a very interesting one because it's positive in a way because you're trying not to harm somebody, but I think there's an implication there that you may.
Well,
yeah, there's
regarding as a GM, last night I tried out Lively for the first time, and I had some inhibitions about, oh, what if I do badly, or what if I mess up, and just jump in and try it. Well, as GMs, and then when going into meditation together, all of that, there's so much focus on the meditation process, all of that falls away, and we become, I don't want to say one with the universe or one with each other, but it drops away. As GMs, when we have a regular group where we're not doing Lively, but we're just sending out the task, receiving the data, making the prediction, and passing out the feedback, do you think as GMs there might be some way that we can help bring our group into not necessarily confidence, but unity, or how do we help them drop the fear and the worry?
Well, I think you just gave a very good example, Nancy, and that is maybe it's meditation, the cool down. If you're going in feeling that, be aware that you're feeling, gee, I'm a little nervous because I might hurt the group. And then you tell as group managers, and I think this is where this has to occur, you say to your viewers as group managers, just what you said, do an extra long cool down, let it just drop away, and trust yourself. I think but notice what you're doing. You're helping them with their inner world. You're taking that point of view, and that's of course what I believe is the appropriate thing to do. And that's what as GMs we should do. In fact, let me just make one other comment going back to what Scott said about newbies, well, and also your comment. I tell my newbies that they should jump in. It's me as a general manager that's responsible, and I know they're a newbie, and so when I do my group prediction, I will take that into account. And so I hope that relieves a little stress for them.
Yeah, and I would encourage, if someone is really worried that they're going to contribute to someone else getting a lower hit rate or losing money, then they're coming from a place of scarcity, and it would help if they focus more on abundance. And if they're worried about someone else losing money, it means they're actually not trusting that other person to know how much they can lose and how much they're comfortable with, and that's probably coming from somewhere inside of them. So maybe they don't trust they don't trust themselves to manage their own money. But if they trusted the other person to manage their money, then they'd realize their Firefly is a gift. It's a gift for all of us to move into abundance and kind of challenge some of our beliefs about scarcity and abundance. Mm-hmm. And the more of us we have to work with, then the higher our hit rates go, and we're really giving a gift to everybody in Firefly just by participating.
Okay, thank you.
This is Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi there. Hi, I wanted to speak to what Nancy said. I think it is very important to get a group into coherence and cohesiveness, and I've been looking a lot at that even as myself as a viewer, myself as an individual viewer, and the goals that I've had versus the goals for a group. And there's some techniques that I found that work very well to bring groups into coherence, and I have a few suggestions I could give for what we can do, even if the group isn't coming together as a lively group. But there's, for example, we could have like a group, almost like a group prayer, something that we all say the same exact thing that we say at the start of a session. Or we can choose a group color and all match to that color, like bring that color into our bodies or visualize that color, and something that's pre-agreed on to, and just simple things like that can make all the difference in the world. And the other thing I wanted to say too was that this issue of people being afraid that they are going to mess things up for other people, I think it could be helpful to really try to work on that issue a little more, because it's one thing just to tell people don't worry about it, but people are so sensitive. I work with a lot of, I train a lot of psychics who read other people, and the things that people are afraid of, like people are afraid to even say to another person, I can tell you're feeling sad, or I can tell you've been having a hard time. They're terrified that even saying something like that might upset the person. So if you take people like that and bring into the idea that you might cause them to lose money, that is such an intense fear that I just think it might be helpful if maybe we spend a little time working on that issue with especially people involved in Firefly. And also with Firefly, doing some exercises to bring about some greater group coherence too, as the overall, maybe not like where everyone's viewing right then, but we could have a couple like Firefly meetings where everyone's required to attend, and maybe do like some exercises to bring everyone into coherence.
Okay, Deborah, that is terrific. Except for the require part, I agreed with everything you said. In fact, you've just outlined a really great webinar where you can give these suggestions. Are you willing to do that? Lead a webinar? I mean, I would love you to do one like next Friday or something like that. Tell people what you're going to be doing, giving them specific suggestions.
Oh no, me and my big mouth.
Well, I mean, it's a good idea, and I mean, maybe.
Sure, I could.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do it as a group if other people have ideas too. And I mean, I'd be happy to. I could do it, or I could, if anyone else also has ideas, like we could do it together.
Okay, good. Let's do it right, a bigger context, have other people. But I think that would be terrific. Why don't you come up with a title for it and put it out to the list, and we'll reserve next Friday. Does that work at noon?
I think, let me just take a look at my calendar real quick.
Or some other time that's convenient to you, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that should be okay.
Okay. Do it. Thank you for volunteering. I'm writing that one down. Okay. I have one other thing to actually ask you, and that is, you're lively. You give the meditation before. Has that ever been recorded? Because other people might want to listen to that. And I don't know if you've ever done a GoToMeeting and recorded a lively session.
Mark would have to speak to that.
Yeah.
If not, it wouldn't be hard for me to record some meditations too, like some of the ones that maybe where we had successful hits afterwards, because they're pretty short. So that's something that I could also do if he doesn't have the recordings, if he don't want to share those.
In fact, maybe I asked him if it was recorded because I wanted to do that, and separate from your coming right now and talking about this, I wanted to put that out to people who I felt needed a stronger cool down than they were doing themselves, just like the people who we just talked about. So that would be great to put a recording, someplace. We can put it on the app site where anybody could get access to it, and if they wanted to use it for cool down.
Sure. I can work on that.
Okay. Thank you, Deborah.
And Deborah, if you want to run ideas by me, I'll be there next Friday too, and I might say something. But if you want to run ideas and help organize it, I'll help.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I'll be there too, and probably have something to say on the subject as well. So in fact, that's terrific. That's terrific. Anybody else comments on beliefs and emotions and how to modify them? Okay, so let me go back.
I thought I'd just say that officially there's no recordings of Lively, or hasn't been.
Okay.
Deborah kind of she changes it pretty much every time. I'm always impressed that she's always come up with something new and goes that level of work with leading meditations.
You know what you might?
So there hasn't been like one staple meditation she uses every time or anything like that.
Okay, but you know what you might do? Start recording them, and if nothing else, just the early part with the meditations, and then there'll be a selection. Because one meditation is not right for everybody. Everything in this business, as we know, is very personal. And so this would give people choices. And in fact, I know there are websites out there that have different kinds of meditations and music and stuff like that. Maybe I'll look up some of that and try to have that ready for next Friday.
After pushing the record button, does it get pretty self-explanatory how to save the file and all that stuff?
Yes.
And when you end it, something will come up telling you what to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't turn off your machine.
The other thing I could do is when I'm doing them, I could record them from my computer, so only the meditation's recorded, and then there's a simple file right there without having to deal with a whole big file to edit.
Well, that's great.
From the whole meeting.
If you would do that, then Mark,
well,
maybe we'll just have duplicate efforts, or Mark doesn't have to do it. So you two guys communicate that, but having a recording, it would be valuable.
Sure.
Okay. So Chris did not make it. He told me he didn't think he would. let me tell you how APP 2015 is shaping up, and it's very, very preliminary. In fact, it's only been within a couple of weeks that we've even known it was going to be in New Orleans. The hotel that Irva is going to is the Hyatt in the French Quarter. So that's nice and centrally located to New Orleans. We are working on getting there as well. That's what Chris is doing. He told me he feels 80% confident that he'll be able to close that deal at a reasonable enough price and size, rooms for us and that sort of thing, and reserve rooms at a reduced price for people who come to APP 2015. So that's what's all involved in closing this deal, is making sure we can get people have rooms at the Hyatt, for example, and get a nice conference room. Okay. The other thing which we've discussed and seems pretty clear at this point is that during the day we will do our work, but at night we will probably explore New Orleans. Most of us have never been there. It's just the kind of place I think you do want to walk on Bourbon Street and do that sort of thing in the evening. We'll try to find some restaurants that, again, optionally, people might want to all go to together because they're well-known restaurants and that sort of thing. So we'll still potentially work as a group, but you know, other people may want to do other specific things, and they'll certainly be free to do that. But the overall theme will be work during the day and play at night. So I don't think we'll do a spoon bending party, but you know, Deborah and some of the rest of you may you know, let me know if that was so much fun that maybe we should stay in the hotel that one night. Okay. I do not know yet for sure if Dean is coming. I believe Joe is coming. However, he's had just recently a serious back operation. I don't know, you know, those of you who saw him last year, you see that he's actually in a fair amount of pain virtually all the time. And he now has had an operation on his back to fix that. And I presume, and I think he's presuming, he'll be okay by then, but you know, there's just a little bit of uncertainty with that. And who the other speakers will be, all the other details are still wide open. I do intend to try to get Joe Gallenberger involved, but it's not clear how. And that's about it. That's where we are with APP 2015. We have a lot more work to do, but that's where it stands. Any questions, comments on that? I don't have. Yeah. Nancy, you did.
May I ask a question about last year?
Uh-huh.
There was with Russell Targ an entourage of camera people and some wonderful interviews. And has that gone anywhere, or will we hear about it at the next IRVA?
That's IRVA. I have not heard that they have actually put the film together, and I'm sure I would have heard. Russ would have made sure. Mm-hmm. So I think it's still in process. But yeah, our connection with IRVA is still there. Oh, and let me say one. So I don't know any more about that, Nancy.
Hey, Mark.
You could write him. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, you have his email address. If you don't, I'm happy to give it to you. He's very open to hearing from, you know, people like us who are interested in remote viewing and ARV. The only other thing I wanted to say is the plan now is to be the same as APP 2014 in the following regard. The first day, Monday, will be an introduction to ARV, enough remote viewing so you can do ARV. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday will be for people who now have experience, and the intro is enough to get them into the follow-up. So that was quite successful. We got quite a few newbies, plus we had quite a few people who came as refresher courses and just to see Joe. So
Shane asked about sports betting and in general and horse racing in particular, since he says the fairgrounds is close to the hotel where we can bet on horses.
As far as I know, there is no sports betting, including the horse race betting, at Harrah's or any of the other casinos. I hadn't thought about actually going to the races, but it's tough to do a binary prediction. I suppose you could break the horses up into equal odds and just try to find which group you wanted to be in, but that seems pretty cumbersome. The current thought is to combine one prediction at least of roulette, so at least one of us and maybe a bunch would like to go and place the bet. So the tasking would be red or black, and red would have, say, the green, and black might have the double green on it. So red or black. For the bet, we're going to put or start at 9 o'clock at night, and so we could do the tasking and the judging and get a prediction during the day, and then actually place a bet that evening. And we would just have an accounting. People would decide how much they wanted to put on the wager, and so we'd have one wager that would get put. So that's the thought in using roulette, just because it sort of be fun to do. And then also do the options, stock options, which could be placed during the day, and people could actually take a piece of it. I've done this before at workshops where I use my account. We make predictions depending on how much people want to wager. They actually can wager, and then there will be an outcome, and then the monies, would either be gained or lost. So those are the two things we're thinking of doing now during the day in terms of predictions.
Marty, can I add one thought to that? Yeah. One of the things that Joe Gallenberger does at his workshop, which is called MC Squared, Manifestation and Creation Squared, is they always have one of the experiences, one of the projects be a service, and it sometimes is a healing to somebody, so they can sit in the middle and have that, and I was thinking there's so many missing persons, there's so much, so many topics that could be done with ARV. I mean, they could all be put in a bag and pulled out, but it might be interesting to do something service-related that isn't necessarily money-related, just as a offering type of thing, a gift to the universe.
I like that, Nancy. Let's definitely see if you can get more specific on that. I mean, what would be put in the bag?
Oh, I can think of 1,000 things.
Okay, well, think of 3 or 4 and then send me an email. I think that's a good idea. In fact, you might be that might be, one of our hour segments, and you'd be perfect for leading that. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Marty. I was wanting to just suggest that maybe for the day before, you could say, invite Joe Gallagher to do a whole day workshop, and if he knew that this was all going to be organized for him, and that he could just show up for the day, and he even I mean, he's got so much to present, and I'm sure a lot of people would love to go to that. That might be a great thing to do for a full day. Or the other idea was with Joe, he, you know, 2 years ago, he talked about a little bit about how he finds missing people, and he was saying that he sends his attention to the spot where they're going to be found in the future. So it is about like him looking at the future, and that's how it's like tied into this subject. Yes. And I know that there has been so little talk about how he does his work, and I am positive that if he offered a day-long workshop on how to find missing people by tuning into the future and all the techniques he uses, there would probably be so many new people wanting to show up to that, and he might enjoy that. And that's something too that, like, even if it's something he's never taught before, like, we could probably help him kind of get something together for the day. But he might be attracted to doing a new topic like that.
Okay, my first reaction to that, and remember, we're in the planning stages, and please, all of you, keep giving ideas like this, is you've now talked about 2 days out of 3, and that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, that would just change the whole structure of what we're doing with app. However, for Gallenberger to do, say, half a day leading to a roulette prediction where we then go to Haraz, however, he would now be the person to lay that out in detail, that actually sounds pretty good.
Joe likes to do creation with manifesting and creation with slot machines too, which would be fun. Are there slots there?
Yes, but again, not in the hotel. No matter what we do, we would have to go out and do it a field trip. But I would I'll actually talk to Joe about that. I've talked to him about doing, you see, a separate workshop. And what you've just talked about with Joe McMonagle, Deborah, that would be a great separate workshop. Plus, that could be a terrific topic, even though he wouldn't do it for a whole day. He could certainly give an hour or 2-hour talk on it. That might be a really good talk for him to do. Right. And I do see that being okay. And I'm writing these ideas down. So I do see that being able to be fit in very nicely. We're beginning to get a good outline of an agenda here, and that's good.
If you propose to him as, maybe a totally separate workshop, like a 2-day workshop in finding people, you would probably have hundreds of people attending that, because he's never offered anything like that before.
I will talk.
But then that would be competing with the national, with IRVA.
No, she's talking a different one at a different time.
Right, totally separate thing that maybe app could sponsor and arrange for him so he could just show up and teach. But that might be just a good way to get people, if app sponsored it, it would get people aware of the organization. And I know so many viewers who would jump at that in an instant.
Yep, I think that's
totally
I think that's an excellent idea. In fact, I may next time I talk to him, I'll suggest that to him. And something like that could be done at the Monroe Institute. They allow other groups to use their facilities.
It could be a webinar too.
Or it could be a webinar. Well, that's a possibility too.
I'd rather do a webinar than to make a trip to New Orleans.
Well, in fact, that's kind of interesting, Deborah. Yeah, because to get hundreds of people, well, it was going to be a separate one, so it could be any place, Scott. So don't think of that location. But nevertheless, what do you think about a webinar? Would this work as a webinar?
It might actually be easier on his back.
And also, he'd be able to get more likely to get hundreds of people as a webinar, because the people don't have to travel to be there. What's your reaction to that, Deborah?
I don't know. I mean, I think if he had actually like, I don't know, I think it'd be fun to do it in person myself, but I mean, it could work as a webinar, but I was thinking if it was like actually like a full 2-day workshop where he had people doing different exercises in addition to teaching how he does it. I don't know that he'd want to, I don't know if a webinar format for 2 days straight works, or if it's like a really long one. I mean, for just a talk, about how he does it. But I'm thinking just when he gave that talk a couple years ago and mentioned his technique, like where he'll literally like go from block to block, like mapping out where a popular, say like a train station or airport is, and then going over to where the person is. And just it seemed like he had a lot he could share. And I don't know if a webinar format works for. I don't think people can really sit in front of their computers for more than 2 hours. But maybe checking with him.
Yeah, I'll ask him what he thinks. Yeah, I'll ask him what he thinks about that. However, I think your estimate of how many people would be willing to travel no matter where you had it may be high just because of the expense. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. But yeah, but the people who do want, and people love to be with Joe, so I don't think you'd have any trouble getting 25 people, for example, and that's why I was thinking doing it at TMI. Okay, anyway, any other suggestions related to App 2015?
Yeah, Shane says the nearest place to do slots to the hotel is at the horse racing place, and you can hop on a trolley for a couple blocks and get down to the fairgrounds racetrack.
So, Shane, have you been in touch with Tom Atwater?
That's what I was thinking. Yes.
And maybe get Tom to come to one of these. He hasn't been to one for a while.
Yes, he said he has talked to Tom.
Okay, good. Yeah, I know I tried to get them in touch with each other. Well, I don't know if we can bring horse racing in. I understand the idea. Tom did have a way of doing it binary. I think he split them into 2 groups. I just don't know how many people are into that as opposed to the roulette, if we have Gallenberger. Anyway, I appreciate the suggestion.
His point was that's where the slot machines are, the nearest slot machines.
Oh, I'm sure Haraz has slot machines too.
I think we should just expand it to 3 weeks.
And just go to New Orleans and party, have a vacation.
A long vacation.
Okay. Any other suggestions? Comments?
I don't mean that for those of you who don't know me.
I think we understood. Okay. Anything else that anybody wants to talk about, discuss, comments?
I just wanted to ask Nancy real quick. I noticed that in Sublime's last prediction there was a mixture of CAS and binary scores on the TARG scale.
Uh-huh.
How are you doing that? Is everybody doing CAS or?
Well, each person has a different transcript number, and so they get to choose how they want to play. And except Michelle was doing CAS because I asked her to, because she's just phenomenal. She hits and really does really well with it. So so it was just a little bit different this time because it was kind of a hodgepodge, and everybody got to do what they love to do, what makes them happy. And except for Michelle, and she did CAS because she's so good at it. Does that explain it or make it?
Are you going to do that? I notice you're bringing a lively approach in, which I like, because I have not had the timing. I just haven't been able to make marks, and
Marty, we just thought of that, so we haven't had a chance to discuss it within Sublime.
Okay.
But I remember somewhere along the way that Carlos was hoping that there might be a group that would do lively for Firefly, and I thought it might be fun for us as sublime to come together once every other week for 45 minutes and see if we could do it, just because it's fun to be together all
Yep.
live.
Yeah,
So we haven't really discussed it yet,
Okay.
and I hate to put out any decisions because there aren't any at this
Okay,
moment.
but I will tell you,
But-
I think that is a great idea. And Sublime is the right group to do it since you've already sort of diversified within one
Sure.
group. So it would be natural to have, like you say, every other week, let's all do a lively approach, and then the other week we each do whatever we feel is best.
Well, the reason I was thinking every other week is because Mark's got a strong pattern going on every other week, and Deborah's in our group, and it would be nice not to overwork everybody, you know, to not have anybody feel like they have to do lively every single, you know, couple times a week, or it's too much, and I don't want it to be too much. I want it to be really fun and empowering and not overworked.
Okay, that's
So last Wednesday, there was some CAS and there was some binary and
So there was one CAS and all the rest were binary.
was it
And-
live?
No, but it was then that I had this idea of, hey, we should be doing this live. Because we were all together on it. So it just, that's when the idea came, was then, Wednesday.
Because, you know, I'm doing something slightly similar.
Are you doing a lively?
No. In Transcendent, I'm sort of mixing classic binary with CAS. So basically, they do a single session, and if they get a high CAS score, then that's great. And that's
So everybody has the same transcript number? Everybody's the same?
presently, but in a week or two, I'll have it so everybody has a different transcript number. But everyone's getting different pictures.
Yeah, everybody gets a different picture with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we
But
do it.
the modification to CAS is if they don't meet the threshold for the figure of merit, then it kind of turns into binary, and then I look at both photos and give each photo a TARG score, 0 to 7.
So you're able to pull up both pictures in CAS? You're able to get both?
I do. I wrote a program to do that, to make it real easy. I can just click on a link and both pictures come up. And I imagine other CAS managers might want to use that.
Well, so are you doing that after, how do you know they're not reading your mind?
Well, here's the thing. I divided it into 3 groups. And group 1 is just classic CAS. And basically they have to buy into it. They have to decide ahead of time
Yeah.
if they want to be in group 1, 2, or 3. Now in group 3, which is where most people are, they either know from experience that bleed through is not going to be a big problem, and reading my mind is not going to be a big problem. And especially since we're all in different locations, we're all over the world, we're doing it at different times, we're not in the classroom, so it's maybe not quite as easy to read someone's mind. Then they know that works for them. Some people already know what level of bleed through they get.
Mm-hmm.
So it's working. It worked really well the first 3 times, and it's more satisfying to some people because their transcript actually can.
Looks like it. Yeah.
So the first time I did that, there was at least 1 or 2 transcripts that did not meet the CAS threshold, but were 5s. We got a whole bunch of 5s and 5.5s. That
That's exciting.
yeah, of course it was my fault that it didn't reach the level. Anyways, I haven't been able to tell people yet exactly what CAS needs, and that's going to be a whole process. But it's always going to be like that, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, there'll be times when people are not going to meet the CAS level, but they're going to definitely meet the 3.5 level on the TARG scale. And they get more feedback that way, and they'll grow faster, and blah, blah, blah. Now, the second subgroup is interesting. Nobody's joined it yet. But the idea with the second subgroup, maybe because it's a little weird, is that if they don't meet the CAS threshold, but CAS is leaning toward one side or the other, then I'll just look at that one photo for the side that is leaning on. So in that sense, I and they will never see the losing photo. And I'll just kind of trust that Kaz is leaning toward the right side, which would make a lot of sense, because if the pictures, are distinct enough, and it's a specialized library and they're meant to be distinct, then Kaz could at least suggest which side is leaning toward, and there's a good chance it's going to be correct. So for people that do have bleed-through issues, they would take solace in the fact that nobody ever sees the losing photo. But nobody's joined that group yet, maybe because they don't understand it, or because
how is that any different than binary?
it's different because if Kaz does give a high score, then I won't look at either photo.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Until afterwards.
Okay. You give it the option, and
Yes.
then the hope is that you won't have any passes or less passes.
We're definitely already having less passes.
Yay! Good. Good.
Yeah, and it's also slightly different from binary only because we have the specialized library.
Mm-hmm.
And
What is that library? Just the CAS library?
I'm in the Kaz library, yeah.
And you have no idea what's in there. You know what's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, and there might be a few other minor differences than regular binary. In some cases, in some forms of binary, you've got a picture in an envelope, and then there's a chance that people could be looking in the envelope, or people could be looking at you placing the picture in the envelope, or whatever, or reading your mind. But like the way we do we right now, and like the way we do CAS, the targets aren't actually generated until after the session is turned in.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it's not like the way some people do binary.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You're bringing another topic for APP 2015, and this is one John should do, and that is a kind of CAS in app or something like that, because we clearly have some of it has been done straight the way Ed May sort of envisioned it, but now we've done modifications and we ought to report on how well what we've done, because these ideas are really quite innovative.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. I don't know, Scott, if you'd like to do that presentation, if we have it in 2015, I'd be happy if you would.
No, John, I think you need to lead that, because there's more than just of what Scott has done. Now, you may decide to, when it comes, in your presentation, hey, Scott, why don't you talk about, you guys can work that out. But I think you have to be the primary one. It's very clear. In fact, Ed may even be involved here. I've talked to Ed. I just can't. I just don't think we can afford to pay for everybody to come.
Yeah,
I'm having that problem. But Ed, might very well participate via webinar, and in fact, we might make this one a webinar if he's going to watch it. So, there's a lot of details to be worked out, but you're the guy to lead it.
Well, I think that's a good idea to have CAS, and it's Scott is really experimenting with some really important variables, and that's important that we do that because, as I said, the ones I did were pretty much standard Ed May type. Now, Ed may not be wild about these experiments, but so be it.
That's right. He should know about it.
Oh, he'd like it. I know he would like it.
I don't know.
And I can do some pretty cool things since the back end is based on access, and that's kind of my specialty as a programmer. I can do things like with the push of a button, it could send out the email. Like one of the burdens of being a cache GM is you kind of have to send out emails to everybody, and it's not handled online the way Marty has we set up. But I could handle it. I could have it send out emails one by one or all together. I could also conceivably manipulate it so that a person doesn't get the same target twice in the same month. And I could also manipulate it so that if they missed on that target one or two times, then they wouldn't get that target ever again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's terrific that you have that ability and access. And
God, I think that would really improve accuracy, because as a viewer getting the same one several times in a row, it creates front loading on third try out there.
Right.
That would be good. That would be really good.
Okay. Anything else? Other? You might hear a little discomfort in my voice because my GTM has stopped responding, and so I'm a little concerned about whether I'm going to get the recording. I will before I can't.
This is still recording.
Say it again.
Yeah, it says it's recording on this end.
Well, yes, but normally, see, the only choices I'm getting when I click on it is go to meeting is not responding. If you close the program, you might lose information. And it's only giving me two choices, close program or wait for program to respond. And of course, I've been waiting for the program to respond. And I'm afraid if I close the program, I'll lose it. So anyway, the reason I'm telling you this is what I would like to do is call go to meeting and see if maybe it's saved on their machine or something like that, so I know for sure I won't lose it.
Well, the joy is that there's probably nothing better you can do about it right now.
Well, that's true. Okay. Hey, you got it. That's hard for me to feel, but you got it. Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is unless there is anything else, why don't we end this now? And I thank you all for coming. And, well, you guys can keep talking. What I'm going to do is make a call to them. I've sort of lost my focus on this meeting. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Marty. It was a great meeting. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, and
Yeah, thanks, Marty.
and I had a lot.
By the way, I think my mic's working now. I just want to thank you for the
Okay.
the conference here. Thank you.
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Yes, we
thanks.
can hear you.
I finally got it fixed when we're done.
I just had a lot of people who said they wanted a recording of this, so I don't want to lose it.
Hey, Marty, were you thinking of inviting Hal Pudoff to come at any point?
I
He's already gonna be at
did
IRBA?
think about it, and let me tell you what my response was. I didn't want to take away any of IRBA's thunder. That was a major person to get, as you well know. And I just think it's great that they got him. And if I try to get him and notice he would be coming to us first, now maybe for just a webinar, I might ask him to talk for an hour. But you understand, I would somehow be taking the thunder away from IRBA.
Our friends.
At least that's how I'm feeling right now.
Hey, by the way, Marty, how much will this this cost, the APP conference?
Typically, they've been costing about $400. $395 is what we've been making them. This one, I don't know if it's going to be more, especially if we, bring more people in and have to pay their expenses. We never make, money on it, but we do have to cover our expenses. So that's undetermined.
Have you talked to IRBA about like maybe both of you making some kind of deal, like whoever of your participants come to IRBA, they might get like a little bit of money off, or vice versa or something, just to kind of help each other boost attendance?
Well, we help each other with the room rates and stuff like that because together we bring in more people, so we use that to our advantage. Have not thought about what you just said. Hey, if you're going to both, we'll give you a 10% discount, and you get a 10% discount on both. I could talk to Pam about that. I certainly know her well enough to suggest that. I don't know if that's better. I mean,
I know that they have a concern that it's possible that some people might want to come to APP and not to their conference, which I think is not the case at all. But I think that maybe if they knew that you're doing things to try to encourage people to go to IRBA too, which of course we know, there's never been anything you've done to not encourage that.
Right.
And I think actually last year, it might even be interesting to see who in the last few years who came to APP, like even taking a poll, did people end up going to IRVA because they came to APP first, and then just kind of sharing that with them or something. But
yeah, no, I understand. I do understand what you're saying. And I have had people say they're not sure they can afford both, so they'll have to choose one or the other. So, well, I mean, we are a factor. And it may very well be we do help, though. So, because once people, and the reason we've connected is once people pay their airplane fare, their transportation, then it makes sense to go to both. But, you still have to pay the room.
yeah.
Anyway, it's a factor, and it does go both ways. But I'll think about that one. I don't think it's going to change the numbers. You know what I mean? I think a person who can't afford it, 10% less, might not. But on the other hand, it does show that we are encouraging it, which we do. Okay. Anyway, thank you, Deborah. Okay. So welcome to talk and talk amongst yourselves or whatever. I'm going to call the GoToMeeting people now. Let me get their number. I think you all are active, so you can stay or not. So, in fact, maybe Scott, maybe you want to lead it. Why don't you see if people still have other things they want to discuss?
Okay.
You're pretty good. I can't give you.
Thank you, Marty.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll just end it when it's ended.
Well, in fact, why don't you see? That's good. If you end it at your end, then it may just start the recording at this end. Scott?
Yeah, nature.
First take the presenter, and then I think you can end the conference for all because you are an organizer. Yes, why don't you do that?
Make presenter.
Because then it'll, yeah.
All right, I'm the presenter.
Okay. Thank you all for coming, and keep precogging.
Thanks, Marty.
Yeah. Okay, so you ended it.